Adele Evershed's Wannabe is a novella-in-flash that delves into the intricacies of girlhood, womanhood and the human experience with its vivid imagery and raw emotion. This poetic and powerful portrayal explores the depths of yearning, dreaming, and ultimately accepting oneself amidst the aftermath of abuse and trauma and the societal expectations that loom. Alien Buddha Press. Adele Evershed's prose expertly interrogates those often elusive in-between places in our everyday lives. Her subtle building of tension alongside character packs such weight and insight into each line that reading her work feels like getting with something secret and dangerous. Lucas Talent, editor at Wrong Turn Lit. Adele Evershed writes flash fiction with insightful short sentences and descriptive snapshots of authentically observed human behavior, but resonating from those well-crafted words are prompts to the emotions within that for the reader can last long after the reading stops. Ian Rushton, Free Flash Fiction.
What you will. After their birth, she hid it away in a slate box. That old Creole idea of one soul in two bodies. But the truth was always peculiar, capturing idle hearts with a few words. To protect them from the breaking, she tried to spit amulets in stories and gold leaf. Yet she only managed a feeble deliverance of fairy tales and other things that sank into the swamp. It drained her and left her hideously pale. But still she refused to give up, wanting them to believe her love would always be big enough to save them both. It would have been a most lovely death, if only what she had promised was true. Wannabe is a novella-in-flash. It deals with violence against women and was inspired by a specific incident that took place in Britain in 2021. Sarah Everard was walking home after an evening out with friends when she was bundled into a car, driven to Dover, and once there, she was strangled and her body was burnt. The perpetrator was a serving Met officer. Her murder sparked many protests in the UK. So some of the flash fictions in this book are about the ordinary girls who find themselves in dangerous situations. Sitting in a bar, swinging on a tyre swing, talking to a doctor in the hospital. And you're right if you're sat there thinking, they don't sound like dangerous situations. And there's the problem. If you are a woman, any situation can become unexpectedly dangerous if you are unlucky to meet the wrong person at the wrong time. Full fathom 5, thy father lies, of his bones are coral made. Those are pearls that were his eyes, nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a sea change into something rich and strange. Sea nymphs hourly ring his knell. Ding dong, hark, now I hear them. Ding dong bell. Full fathom 5. I was 14 when I found I could breathe underwater. My stepfather held my head down in the bath after I'd given him what he called cheek. Actually, I'd called him a fucking bastard and refused to give him a hand job. At first I struggled, sending mini tsunamis over the side of the bath. I remember my eyes stinging. Then a moment of stillness and I could breathe. Finally I stopped thrashing and Logan thought he'd drowned me. He yanked my head up and dropped me on the tile floor. As I coughed, he threw a towel at me and told me to clean up. I was 15 when I discovered I was not the only one. I had started to visit the lake, disappearing beneath the waves for hours. Underwater I felt safe for the first time in a long time. And then one day, Ruby was there. Her body long and thin, the hair flowing behind her like a signal. When she saw me, she smiled and said, "Welcome, Nessie. We've been waiting for you." I was 16 when I swam ashore and went back home again. As I walked along my street at the edge of morning, nothing much had changed. But then, on a lamppost, a poster shouted, "Have you seen this girl?" And there I was, with a fixed smile and my old name. I let myself in through the back door, not expecting anyone to be awake. But my mother was sitting like a shadow in the kitchen. When she saw me, she made a noise like a vase shattering. I was 18 when I found Logan. I knew that my mother had thrown him out after I went missing. He told her that I was always a selfish bitch and my mother should spend no more tears on me. He was living with another woman who had a young daughter. When I looked into her eyes, they were as empty as a sailor's grave. I waited for Logan outside the bar and sang my song into his ear. We walked through the trees together, and I asked him to go skinny dipping with me. And although it was January, he stripped off, saying, "I knew I was right about you. You love it, don't you, Vanessa? You're nothing like your mother. She's as frigid as a cow's udder." And he laughed as he ran into the water. So the other strand of the novella touches on the kind of people who commit these crimes. Are you born a certain way, and so committing this sort of crime will become inevitable? Do you seek out certain situations? Or is it just fate that puts you in the park on a certain night at the wrong time? Wannabe also asks the question, how observant are we? Do we only see what we want to see? As one of the characters said, maybe we all need to pay attention to the small details, because that helps if you want to make an impression or solve a murder.
Stone the Crows. Summers in Louisiana were long and slow and full of rain, but no matter, Mommy wanted my sister and me out from under her feet. She told Nana to give us our lunch in a plastic bag and told us to come back for afternoon tea. We lived near the Mississippi River and thought it a magical place, full of beavers, swamp rabbits, and the occasional alligator. My sister had a bird spotting book, and we'd take Daddy's old binoculars and spend our mornings looking for purple gallinules and the bright pink spoonbills. She noted down in her nature notebook when we saw one. I never really liked looking for birds. I preferred it when we made a cocoon in the long grass and sat cross-legged to eat our picnic. My favorite time was after lunch. We'd unpack the books from the backpack, settle down, and escape to a different world. My favorite book, unsurprisingly, was Huckleberry Finn. I'd imagine I was him running from father and sailing down our river. One day, we found a place where the cottonwood trees arched over like a green cave, and my sister said we could make it our hideout. We brought some things from the house each day to make it more comfortable. She even got 2 of Mommy's good china cups. They had butterfly prints on them, and it felt if I had held them too tightly, they would break and let the butterflies fly free. One afternoon, we were following the path to the hideout when we saw a crow. It flapped a broken wing helplessly and hopped towards the long grass. "Quick, grab it," my sister shouted at me, but I stood transfixed by the crow's red eyes. Finally, she snapped, "Oh, you're such a baby. I'll do it myself." Then she turned to show me how brave she was, but the crow was squawking and flapping its good wing. It frightened me so much I wet myself. My sister laughed and told me to go home and get a diaper. As I turned towards home, she started to walk towards our den. When my sister didn't show up for afternoon tea, Mommy asked me where she was. When I said I didn't know, Mommy demanded I take her to find Scarlet. My sister had brought the bird to our den. She'd gathered daisies and cow parsley to make a nest and placed the crow on top of the greenery. She was holding up one of the china cups and singing 4 and 20 blackbirds in a voice I didn't recognize. When we saw what she had done, Mommy squealed and my sister turned around, dropping the cup. Mommy held my hand, her other hand pressed to her mouth, and she took in my sister's smeared shorts and bloody hands. In a high-pitched voice, she said, "Oh my God, what have you done?" It's not what it looks like," my sister whimpered. But of course it was. When I looked down at the ground, a butterfly was emerging from the shattered cup. It hovered for a minute before fluttering out of sight.
Remains found. And in the rain-glazed wood, always just off the path, what remains? Amongst the organic groundswell, unfurling with the "he fiddled with me" fern, it called to the synthetic dog walkers. The cyclists, sausages strung in links, pedal past too fast, and all the joggers are deaf. Look, I have always been here, taking up the negative space next to the broken wheelbarrow and skunk cabbage to mask the rot. Maybe you should have tended me, helped me grow, and found out what I looked like on the insides without an autopsy.